Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment in our character review series for Marvel Contest of Champions. Today we have a character that has been effectively thrown to the wayside in terms of continuing this character's relevance into higher rarities of the champion. That's Wolverine. Now, Wolverine is viewed by Kabam as being the most powerful healer in the game. I don't know that that's the case anymore with a lot of the newer characters that we've had crop up, as there are characters that can deal and receive a lot of healing. I'm particularly thinking of Omega Red when I say that, but Wolverine does have one of the better healing mechanics in the game, and I can understand where it might be out of balance if you were to take the character to a higher rarity, such as a 5 or 6 star character. So, as upset as I am, I can understand where they're coming from to a point. But let's at least talk about the way that Wolverine functions in his current state and appearance, and because of the way that he works, I don't expect him to receive any sort of buff or alteration, or I really don't expect him to be overhauled either, but I still have a couple of ideas of some things that could be done to make the character a little more faithful, if you will. So, within Wolverine's base abilities, he has an 80% chance to inflict a bleed on his opponent whenever he lands a critical hit, and that bleed will last for 5 seconds, which is actually a pretty good chance of getting your opponents to bleed, and mutant heroes within the game are known for being able to have high critical and cruelty ratings through team synergies, so there's a lot of power and potential out of that ability alone, and that could perhaps overclock some of his usefulness and danger as well. Whenever Wolverine is attacked or lands an attack on an opponent, either way, he has a 14% chance to activate a regeneration buff on himself, and that will last for 4 seconds and regenerate a certain amount of health. It winds up being about 8% of his max health, and of course you can improve that with different masteries. And that's a quite nice little thing to see with his health recovery, even just as an unawakened base level character. The only other real noteworthy item with Wolverine is that on his Special 3, and on none of his previous specials, his Special 3 has a 100% chance to inflict a bleed against his opponents, and that, again, deals that bleed damage for 5 seconds. It's the same amount of bleed that you would see on any of his critical hits. I think that that bleed could be a little bit stronger because you would have to have some sort of benefit to building up to that Special 3 apart from the regeneration abilities, because that's the one thing that I did neglect to mention, is the regeneration is directly proportional to the amount of stored power that Wolverine has. So if he's at 3 bars of power, he then can regenerate up to that almost 8% of his health over the duration of the regeneration buff that he does activate when striking or being struck by his opponent. Now, Wolverine's signature ability ramps up that healing factor even more, which grants Wolverine an 8% chance to activate a regeneration buff, presumably under the same circumstances as his other regeneration mechanics. The main difference being this regen buff has a higher potency in the health that it can recover, and will increase in that potency as you increase the character's signature level. And though I think that everything along those lines is all well and good, if we wanted to see Wolverine available in higher rarities, here's my proposed trade-off. The first option is completely remove the randomness from the activation of his regen buffs. And what instead should happen is he should be able to passively regen a certain amount of health, and a very small amount at that, maybe 0.5% of health every second within the game. And yeah, that sounds like a lot, so you would probably want to make that even lower. And then for his signature ability, you would want to have, again, a higher potency regeneration that can activate, but have it activate on a timer and give that a shorter duration. So allow him to regenerate 10% of his health once every 25 or 35 seconds throughout the fight. And that will still stay true to the character's nature while not overbalancing him too much and keeping him as one of the better options for longevity and sustainability within a team, especially where this is a character that you can access relatively early on in the game through just the random crystal drops, and would be an even better tool for early game players. So it probably would be better to have that regen that is going passively on the character be a lot lower, probably closer to 0.2%. Instead of a full 0.25%, and that way you can mitigate any of the incoming damage by blocking attacks and by parrying your opponents as well. And there's still a decent amount of counterplay to regeneration mechanics with heal block and petrify that is increasingly common among the cast, so I don't think that there is really any reason why that type of a change couldn't be incorporated to the character, but that really is one of the bigger aspects of the character. In terms of his special attacks, I don't think the animations need to be changed at all, though I would perhaps like to see a guaranteed chance for a bleed to activate off of his special attacks, albeit at a lower potency than the standard crits throughout his kit, because he's got massive claws hanging out of his hand. Like, whenever he purposefully hits into an opponent harder, I feel like that's more grounds for a bleed to activate and perhaps have a longer duration at less damage per second than the standard crit bleeds that he is capable of activating with his critical hits throughout the course of the fight. Now, do I honestly think that any of this is really going to happen to Wolverine? Probably not, and that's because Kabam has made up their mind that they would rather not tamper with this character or alter them in any way, and that is a large part of the reason why we have not seen this character be made available in higher rarities, such as 5 and 6 star champions, which is a real letdown, especially when it comes to that latter game content, because Wolverine would be an excellent team member to have on board for some of those more tedious fights. But what do you think? Do you think that Wolverine is fine just the way he is? Do you feel like there is some attention that needs to be given back to this character and maybe a rework in its entirety to make him more relevant and possible to attain at higher rarities of the champion? Be sure to let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you've made it this far into the video, feel free to leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe for that daily variety content. Thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.